Hello everyone and welcome to Slash Film Daily for August 20th, 2018. On today's episode, we're going to talk about what we've been up to at the water cooler. This is Slash Film Editor-in-Chief Peter Sciretta, and joining me on today's podcast is Managing Editor Jacob Hall.
Hello, hello.
Weekend Editor Brad Oman.
Hey, that's me.
And writers Hoai-Tran
Hey everyone.
and Chris Evangelista.
Hello.
Ben Pearson is out on a work trip and is not joining us today, but I'm sure he will share all the goodness that he has been up to, that he is legally able to talk about next week when he returns back on the water cooler. But I guess let's start with what we've been doing. It's been a while since I've been at the water cooler. I missed last week's episode because I was sick, and I missed the week before that because I was in Las Vegas attending a convention for magicians called Magic Live. I promise I won't spend too much time on this because I know some people out there just love or hate that I talk about magic on on a movie podcast. But if you want to know what a convention for magicians is like, it's pretty much like any convention. There's a show floor where you can go buy stuff. In this case, it's magic tricks and magic apparatuses and, cards and stuff. There's, these presentations, which are kind of like a series of TED Talk like speeches. Mark Summers was there giving a speech because he used to be a magician, something I didn't know. And there is, there's shows. We get to see some magic shows, and it's a whole lot of fun. My favorite part of the convention was there's an area. It's called I forget what it's called. It's like a session room where it's just kind of like a room where people hang out and show each other card moves and tricks, and you get like advice from other magicians. But it's not just like other magicians. Like that stuff happens at the Magic Castle. This is like the big names of magic. Like, there was one point that I was in this room with, 5 or 6 big names that probably you guys wouldn't recognize names, but these are the living legends of today in magic, and just, watching them, getting advice from them, and, hands-on, face-to-face time with them was just incredible. While I was in Las Vegas for Magic Live, I was invited to this house party at Chris Kenner's house. Chris Kenner is the producer of David Copperfield's show. He is a magician in his own right, and he's been his producer for decades. And he is a big, huge film geek. I'll actually link in the show notes because his house, he has tons and tons of movie props. And he has built himself a secret lair, which is, operated by, behind a movie poster, and there's, a Batman suit, which he got from Christopher Nolan, and then you remove that, and there's, this whole lair filled with, any sci-fi weaponry you could possibly imagine. It was just so cool, and, again, it was, one of those parties that, just filled with the who's who of magicians and interesting people. At one point, I was sitting at a table, showing some card tricks to some other people, and this guy walks over, not the typical magician type, kind of like a older, nerdy guy, and he's like, can I show you guys a card trick? And we're like, sure. And he starts to show this card trick, which involves someone picking a card, and then it could get, going into the deck, getting shuffled, and then he starts using the deck as if it's an iPhone, pressing on the deck and acting like he's asking Siri to find the card. And he goes, and by the way, I invented Siri. And I was like, wait, hold on. What do you mean you invented Siri? He's like, I'm Adam, I forget his last name. I invented Siri. I also invented Change.org, and my latest AI company is called Sentient. And I was like, that's a bad idea. But I don't know. It was just a crazy, crazy place. I had a lot of fun, and I wanted to talk about that briefly. I guess that's probably all that I've been up to. I also went to this weekend seminar this past weekend at the Magic Castle for magician Joshua J. It was an intensive, hands-on kind of thing. It was cool. But I did want to also give you guys an update on AMC A-List, which I've been using a lot in the last few weeks since I last talked to you. Have you guys been using A-List at all?
I don't have any AMCs near me, so it's not an option for me.
I mean, I've been using it as regularly as I was using MoviePass before, so.
I still haven't made the switch yet. So, I mean, I'm considering it, though. It's just that AMC doesn't offer the wide range of movies that I really want to see.
Yeah. And Chris, you don't leave your house, right?
Yeah, I don't actually like movies, so.
I've been using a lot. I do find that a lot of the movies I want to see, the smaller independent films, aren't available. Or I don't want to say they're not available. They're available later. Like, I had to wait a few more weeks later to see the Mr. Rogers documentary, which I talked about on here previously. I saw 8th Grade this past week. I'll talk about that in the what we've been watching segment. But some things I did notice about A-List is every time I go there, there are more people using their A-List. Like this last time, there is one of the benefits of A-List is that you don't have to wait in the normal concession line, and you get this like VIP red carpet treatment. It's kind of like a fast pass to order your concessions. And the last time I was at the theater for 8th Grade, the line for the VIP, A-List, the A-List line was longer than the normal line. So, I don't know. I think AMC needs to figure something out about that. And I got to the movie theater, I think, 15 minutes before showtime, and I was going to order. I was at my local AMC theater is like a dine-in theater, so I went to but it's not like one of those ones you can order at your seat, and they have like milkshakes and stuff, and I was like, I want to try what an AMC milkshake tastes like, and I went up to order the milkshake, and they told me it was going to be 25 minutes to make a milkshake, just because they had so many people in line. AMC, not as, it still has some problems because I think of the popularity. They're saying, just the way MoviePass had problems in the app. I think AMC is suffering some problems with more people than usual being at these theaters. And I've also noticed that the AMC, as I'm seeing more AMC movies, that the presentation leaves something to be desired. During one screening, I think I saw Mission Impossible Fallout for a second time. Or actually, no, that was in the IMAX. I saw something for a second time, and in the screen that I was in, the sound of the AC fan was louder than the movie. So it was really distracting. And then the last movie I saw, 8th Grade, the projector, I'm not sure if you guys have ever experienced this, was kind of I don't want to say flickering, but it would get brighter slowly and then get darker slowly, like over the course of like a minute. But like the stroke, I don't know, it was really bothering me. So I don't know. I sent comments to AMC, see if they can fix my local theater so that I don't have these annoying problems. But Brad, have you had any problems with your local AMC?
I haven't had any problems beyond what I normally have with my local AMC, which is that, it's a theater that is just fine, but not great. So yes and no, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm still enjoying it. I'm still getting my money's worth. But that's the latest on that. Brad, what have you been doing?
So I just got a couple cool things lately that I felt like I just wanted to bring up because I was a big fan of them. We've talked about them on the site before, I think. I received my vinyl soundtrack for Call Me By Your Name in the mail. It's the limited edition peach scented one, and the vinyl is also peach colored. And it's pretty fantastic. The soundtrack for Call Me By Your Name is gorgeous, and it was nice to have it on a vinyl that has a fun reference to one of the more central parts of the movie, I guess you could say. I hopefully no one takes the vinyl and does what is done with the actual peach in the movie, because that would be perplexing and weird. And then also I received a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive that I bought that went on sale after the convention. You could pick it up at the convention floor if you got like a ticket to get the exclusives, which was something they changed this year. And since I didn't get one of those, I had to wait until this went online at the Hasbro shop because they released a Black Series new edition of Han Solo where he's dressed like he is in The Empire Strikes Back, and he comes with the ventilation mask that he wears when they're inside the worm on that asteroid after evading the Empire. It also comes with a Minoc. So I picked that up from Hasbro, and that just arrived this week, and it's awesome. The Black Series line continues to be the best thing that Star Wars or that Hasbro has in their Star Wars line right now. So I was glad I was able to get my hands on that figure and didn't have a problem getting it.
Yeah, and I know you talked last week on the water cooler about what you do with your figures and how you set them up. With a more exclusive thing like this, I guess your Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were also exclusive. But do you open this, or is this like a display piece in the box? Because the box kind of displays the figure too, right?
Yeah, I haven't opened it yet, but I probably will, simply because it's one of those things where I will hold on to it and I won't sell it at any point, and so it's, you know, the value that I would get from keeping it in the box and maybe thinking about selling it one day doesn't really matter to me, so I have no problem opening it whatsoever.
It's actually kind of interesting because at Comic-Con this year, as you mentioned, they handled exclusives in a different fashion. Like before Comic-Con, weeks before Comic-Con started, you had to enter a lottery, and like for certain, like there was a list of dozens of places that offer Comic-Con exclusive, and basically you'd go down the list and check off boxes of places you wanted to enter for a chance to get a ticket to buy exclusive merchandise at Comic-Con. Usually there's lines at Comic-Con, and that's how it's dealt with, you know. And I think what happened, and I'm wondering what you think of this, Brad. I think what happened was a lot of people just, you know, weeks before Comic-Con entered to get tickets to anything. And then when it was at Comic-Con, none of the stuff sold out because the people that actually got the tickets didn't actually want the stuff. They were just entering to get a ticket to anything. And then, like, I'm seeing, like, a lot of these places like Hasbro sell their overages online because they weren't selling out of the stuff like they usually were. Brad, do you have any indication of this?
No, I mean, because they had said before, the convention even said that there was going to be stuff that would be sold on Hasbro shop afterwards. I think that Hasbro has always had a pretty readily available supply of Comic-Con stuff, because even in the years previous when they haven't done this lottery system, Hasbro has always sold some of their stuff online afterwards. So I don't think necessarily that was a problem, but I don't know. I don't like the lottery system in general. The good thing about it is, I guess, it only really matters for the bigger retailers like Hasbro and Lego and Funko, all the ones where people are usually making a mad dash to get in line. Funko actually did their own lottery system last year before there was the overall lottery system for several other retailers. So that's not anything new, but it's definitely frustrating for someone like me who isn't trying to like get every single exclusive and just wants one or two things, you know, for my own personal collection.
I think it's frustrating for everybody, Brad. But,
I mean, that's probably true.
Yeah. Before we get into what we've been watching, let's talk about what we've been reading. Jacob, what have you been reading?
Well, I've been reading a lot of articles recently, and the one that really stands out to me is a very long article called Axes of Evil. That's AXES, Axes in the cutting implement, Axes of Evil. And it was published on Atavist Magazine. You can also read it online, written by Josh Dean. And to give you an idea of what long read this is, the audio version is also available. It's 90 minutes long. So it's not a brisk read. You want to sit down with a drink. And it took me a few sittings to finish it. But it is absolutely fascinating. It is a military story I've never heard before. It is the true story in 1976 of how the American soldiers at the demilitarized zone between North Korea and South Korea, where, you know, there's that stretch of land that divides both countries. There was a large tree that was obscuring the view in the DMZ. So American soldiers went out to trim the branches so they have a better view of the North Korean lines. North Korean soldiers drove out and met them. And since gunfire is not prohibited in the DMZ, there was a massive brawl with North Korean soldiers, attacked the Americans, took their axes that they were using to chop the tree, and killed 2 Americans. And ignited this international incident where essentially World War III could have broken out because of this tree. And the rest of the article follows Operation Paul Bunyan, where the United States military sets out to destroy the tree to prove a point, to say, like, if they let the tree stand after this, they will have let North Koreans put them in a corner. We'll let them have a display of force and power. So it's this massive military operation, the planning extent of which could cause World War III. It's a D-Day level operation in terms of military engagement with helicopters, jets, reserve troops, things going wrong, things going right, the White House interfering, soldiers taking matters in their own hands. This is a dramatic, funny, crazy story that's all about destroying this tree in the DMZ. It at times reads like the Coen brothers, at times reads like Spielberg. It is a truly remarkable, crazy story.
Well, Jacob, last time you mentioned a article on here, weeks later, or I think the next week, a bidding war broke out to adapt that article into a movie. Do you think this has a chance to become a movie?
Well, as we talked about on the show, that I think we did. It was written on the site, at least.
Yeah, it was.
That article was written with the producer of that movie involved to try to make it into a movie from the get-go. So I don't think this one has that help. I don't think it has a producer secretly attached. But I really do hope somebody reads this, because it is such a crazy, great story, and I can imagine it being a really cool movie. I guess my main concern is that it's the kind of movie that require a lot of possible assistance from the U.S. military to get the resources you need to make it, and nobody comes off looking great in this story. Everybody comes off looking a little bit foolish and a little bit dangerous. So I'd be curious to see who would want to make it and how they'd make it.
Yeah. I love the title of this article, Axes of Evil. We will link it in the show notes. HT, you have been reading an abundance of pieces on Crazy Rich Asians online. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so Asian Americans have been coming out in droves to see Crazy Rich Asians in theaters, but Asian American critics have also been coming out in droves to just write about this movie. There's just been so many great pieces that have come out in the past week and a half ahead of and after Crazy Rich Asians release. And I want to just promote a few as well as just talk about how much I appreciate the fact that there's just so many pieces that kind of tackle the wide range of reactions and issues that this movie kind of touches on. So first there is actually former / film writer Angie Han, who wrote for Mashable this really great personal piece called Crazy Rich Asians and the Immense Pressure to Feel Seen, and about that sort of pressure to see yourself on screen and the burden that Crazy Rich Asians has to be everything for everyone, and how it can't exactly live up to those expectations at the same time. So it's a really great piece. There's another one from The New Yorker by Jiang Fan, who wrote How to Watch Crazy Rich Asians Like an Asian American. And it's also a really great personal piece as well. A lot of these are personal essays, and they kind of speak to everyone's different experiences as an Asian American growing up in America. Alison Wilmar at BuzzFeed wrote a really great piece from about Crazy Rich Asians and how often Asians have been kind of viewed as basically white, which is not something that is a really accurate description of the minority community at large. And Inku Kang wrote a really great piece for Slate about the Joy Luck Club and how it's time to forgive that movie, which came out 25 years ago, but because of that immense pressure of representation, the Asian American community ended up kind of turning on it. So those are some great pieces, as well as this really great thread by Rebecca Sun, who just kind of highlights all of another number of really good Asian American penned pieces about Crazy Rich Asians. So I just wanted to give a shout out to all the Asian American critics and writers who are writing about this movie and keep churning out great content. And I'm kind of trying to catch up with my pieces as well.
Yeah, and
it's
you've
kind
done
of
a
like being
couple
high
pieces.
school again.
Yeah, you've done a couple pieces about the movie as well, which you can read on slashfilm.com. Is it possible for you to link all the articles you just mentioned in the show notes to the people who want to check them out? Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
I can do that.
Okay, that'd be great. Let's move on to what we've been watching. It's been a while since I've been on air. I did go to an IMAX theater to rewatch Mission Impossible Fallout. And since I saw it the first time at a press screening, I didn't get to see the trailers before the movie. And IMAX occasionally does these special sneak previews. They did it for The Dark Knight. They've done it in the past for The Dark Knight Rises. I can only remember Batman movies at this point. Dunkirk. Oh, I only remember Nolan movies doing this, but I'm sure other movies have also done this. But in front of Mission Impossible Fallout, they had a preview for for First Man, the Damien Chazelle biopic of. Is it a biopic? I guess it's a biopic. Neil Armstrong, the first man to walk on the moon. Okay, so, I don't know how long this was, maybe 5-10 minutes. It was certainly longer than a normal movie trailer, but it was basically presenting the takeoff of that space mission from the perspective of Neil Armstrong. We've seen the spaceship take off from Earth many times from the point of view of cameras outside of the ship, but seeing it from inside as, it's taking off and it's just literally like a piece of, this is just like metal with a rocket underneath it shaking. Like it's going to fall apart. And you see the guys in there. It's just such a great, an exciting preview. I'm so excited for this movie after seeing this piece. And if you want, I would recommend. I'm not sure if Mission Impossible Fallout is still in IMAX theaters, but if it is, the preview is in front of it. It might be worth just going back just to see that alone. But yeah, so I'm really excited about that film now. And I saw a couple other movies. I saw Eighth Grade, which I think you guys talked about last week on the water cooler. This is Bo Burnham's movie set in the 8th grade. No one told me that this was going to be a horror movie. It is like
I said that.
Did you? Well, I did not hear that before saying it. I was like on the edge of my seat. This brought all the feelings and all the anxiety of being in middle school back. It like perfectly captures it, and even though it's set in modern times and it's so very, captures the the generation of now, it is so perfectly relatable, and it's great. And I highly recommend anybody who is not interested in seeing this, go see this in the theater, because I feel like this is a movie that I don't know. So some indie movies I feel like really benefit from seeing in a theater with other people next to you, while especially those moments the cringeworthy moments where you're kind of like in it together with this other group of people watching this thing. And what else did I watch? I also did watch Crazy Rich Asians, which I enjoyed. I like John Chu's work. I actually usually like the stylistic niche of the style that he brings to his films, and it usually is kind of a mismatch of like the G.I. Joe sequel he did. The best moment or the best scene of that sequel is the Snake Eyes fight scene, and I feel like that's the sequence that John Chu was allowed to do, be John Chu. And in Now You See Me 2, the whole heist breakout scene where they're using cardistry and stuff, it's like the most stylistic, and John Chu gets it. And this film, I feel like actually gives him a chance to do that for a whole movie, and it's so enjoyable. I'm very happy that romantic comedies are making a comeback. It's just so much fun. I love the food porn shots. It makes me want to go visit China. And if I had any complaint about this movie, I would say that I think the first half of the movie kind of lacks a antagonist or so. Like it kind of is like very much just like, oh, everything's going great. But the second half definitely, makes up for that. But I'm sure if you're interested in seeing Crazy Rich Asians, you probably saw it over the weekend. And the other thing I've been watching is Better Call Saul, which is now on AMC. It's as great as it ever is. I just wanted to say how great, what's her name, that plays Kim Wexler. Maybe, Chris, do you know her name? It's escaping me.
It's Rhea Seehorn. Yeah, she's phenomenal. I think she's actually like the best part of that show.
Yeah, she's just so great in that show. That show is just like the best thing that is on television right now, if you ask me. And if you aren't watching it, if you gave up in the first season, go back, watch Better Call Saul, catch up, because you are truly missing great television. Jacob, what have you been watching?
I went to theater and caught up with BlacKkKlansman over the weekend, and I came to this interesting place because as managing editor of Slash Film, I had edited a few spoiler-filled articles about this movie before I got a chance to see it. And so I went into this movie with two articles in mind, one by Candace Frederick and one by Trey Mangum, two of our freelancers, both who had very different opinions. Both were approaching the film as Black Americans, and both had very divergent opinions on who the movie was for and how it presented itself. And so I went in really prepared to be torn by, in both directions, but I ended up loving it. Maybe love's a tough word for a movie that is kind of as unforgiving as this one is. And people talked about this before already, so I don't want to dwell on BlacKkKlansman too much, but to say I thought it was excellent. I saw it at 10:30 in the morning, and the people in the theater around me were just like shell-shocked and crying when the ending happens. The ending is very much a sledgehammer. The movie does not end with racism being defeated. The movie ends with a message that things are worse than ever, and how are we going to deal with this? And it was really a tough moment, but a sobering moment. And for a movie, it's definitely, I feel like Spike Lee every 5 or 6 years emerges from hibernation, makes a masterpiece, and goes back to making little experiments again. And I feel like this is maybe my favorite Spike Lee movie since Malcolm X or Do the Right Thing. It's on the level of those two for me. I think it's a magnificent film. But I also caught up with The Endless, which came out earlier this year. And this is the new film from directors Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, who previously made Spring and Resolution. They're really interesting filmmakers. They make these extremely low-budget horror movies, very personal, very lo-fi, very high concept. And The Endless is a movie that benefits from not knowing much going in. So I'll just say it's about two brothers, played by Benson and Moorhead, who escaped from a doomsday cult 10 years earlier and decided to journey back and visit the cult one more time and discover the truth of the cult, and all kinds of oddness begins to happen. It's definitely a bit of a slow burner. It takes its time getting to the point, which is by design. And because this is a micro-budget movie made for pennies, there are certain effects that maybe don't look Hollywood quality. But I don't need like a movie that looks slick when Benson and Moorhead are making cinema this exciting and this complex and this insane. And watching this was a reminder that like these guys probably could be scooped up by a major studio and put to work making big budget movies, make them great. But they're off in their own corner, carving out their own niche and making these truly wild indie movies. Chris, have you seen The Endless yet? I feel like it's up your alley.
I have. It's very good. It's not my favorite of theirs. I think Spring is much, much better, but this film is so unlike like pretty much anything else out there right now. So it's I feel like I don't want to use the term. I feel like the term mind-blowing is sort of overused, but it definitely applies to this film and just how it unfolds. And I don't know. What I love about their movies is they're very surprisingly emotional, which you don't really get in a lot of modern like horror. And they have a real knack for hitting that like emotional button.
Yeah, it's very much on point. And I decided to follow up The Endless with a revisiting of Cube, the 1997 movie from Vincenzo Natali, because it reminded me a lot of The Endless in that it's another very distinct, very low-budget sci-fi horror vision. And this is streaming in a few places. And I used to watch it all the time when I was younger because I was kind of obsessed with it in a weird way when I was younger because it was an example of the kind of horror movie you can make with almost no money. There's one room and a handful of actors. And the movie's about a group of people who are trapped in a mysterious maze full of traps, and how they try to escape and how they solve the mystery of where they are or how they don't, and how they start to crumble under the pressure of survival. And it shows its age in some ways. Some of the CGI, late 90s CGI, does not hold up. But it's such a cool Twilight Zone movie. It has so much going on in terms of ambition, even though it definitely shows its extreme low-budget roots. But it's streamed on Netflix, I believe. And if you are looking for like a movie that's a real showcase for how to expand your dollar into making a indie genre movie, Sing. This is a really great example. And finally, as you may remember last week, Chris watched Puppet Master Little Strike and was shaking with anger at how much he hated it. Meanwhile, I had other friends who dug it, so I knew that I had to watch it. And for those of you who don't know, this is the latest movie in the long-running Puppet Master series, but sort of a semi-reboot. It takes place in a alternate universe to the rest of the movies where there's no continuity to the previous 12 movies. And it's... I don't know where to begin with this movie. I guess a lot of the controversy, or maybe that's the right word, the bad feelings surrounding this movie comes from the fact that in the original Puppet Master series, the creator of the puppets, the killer puppets, the center of this franchise, created them to fight Nazis. And even though they became like killer monsters later on, their origins were as anti-fascists. So this remake, directed by Sonny Laguna and Tommy Wickland, and written by S. Craig Zoller of Bone Tomahawk and Brawl and Cell Block 99 fame, reverses that and makes puppets themselves Nazis. A Nazi built these puppets, and they are now Nazi puppets on a rampage in modern day Texas, where it's shot. And that means these puppets are literally committing hate crimes whenever they murder people. And it is... I did not hate it. I'm not going to say it is undeniably garbage. It is undeniably trash. But it is a movie that I feel is designed to be trash and designed to be in your face and offensive. And I found it really endearing in a weird way, because I found it kind of adorable in how much it wanted to be garbage and how much glee it took in being disgusting. The makeup and prosthetic effects in this movie are unreal, and the kills are genuinely unpleasant and creative in ways that I can't even describe here, because I don't even want to upset anybody who does not like horror. They're just unreal and unbelievable. And I tweeted that I liked it. My phone blew up with friends yelling at me for saying I liked it, yelling at me for saying, and agreeing with me, disagreeing with me. And so I feel like something you got to see for yourself.
After hearing your pitch, this is the first time I've actually wanted to see this movie.
It's and also at the center of it is Thomas Lennon playing completely straight. They cast Thomas Lennon in a Puppet Master movie, and he's like this sort of low key, very stripped down performance as a guy who's really depressed over his divorce and is not that surprised that he's being hunted by evil puppets. It is a bonkers movie, guys. And like I said, I don't begrudge Chris's opinion at all, and I don't. Interestingly, my wife loved it. My wife was laughing throughout the entire thing and cackling, and I realized that she's such a sicko. I didn't realize my wife was so sick until I watched Puppet Master Little Strike with her. But yeah, I don't begrudge anybody who hates it. It is undeniably garbage. It's undeniably in poor taste. But I found myself on its wavelength. God help me. So
see, the way you're pitching it makes it sound like what I wanted from the Sharknado series, just garbage and knows it's garbage and is feeding on that, rather than what Sharknado actually is, which I guess is garbage, but not fun garbage. Chris, what have you been watching?
I watched and I reviewed the new Amazon series Jack Ryan, starring John Krasinski as Tom Clancy's most famous character, and it's fine. It's one of those shows where every other character except the main character is interesting. For some reason, Jack Ryan is the least interesting part of the Jack Ryan show, which to me is a bit of a problem since the whole show is pretty much centered around him. I was a little conflicted because the writing on the show is surprisingly smart and surprisingly sharp, and it takes great pains to flesh all the characters out. Even the villains get a lot of backstory, but it's shot in this really terrible Law and Order way, where it's like medium close-ups the entire time. And I don't know, maybe I've been ruined because I've been rewatching Breaking Bad, and that show is so cinematic. Like every shot on that show is like a work of art. And then I stopped Breaking Bad to watch this, and everything just looked like crappy, like shot on a phone shots, and it just really like distracted me. So I was conflicted. Like, so I didn't hate it, but it's so poorly shot that I couldn't really enjoy it, which is weird because Amazon dumped a lot of money into this, and they've been hyping it up. It's their latest big show, but it seems oddly cheap, which I was not expecting. So that kind of caught me off guard.
Interesting, because I saw the first episode at Comic-Con, and I think I was expecting it to be total crap. And that first episode actually kind of hooked me in a little, but now that you're hearing your review, it doesn't seem like I'm going to follow up on it. But that first episode was directed by the guy that did Passengers, I think.
Yeah, and that's probably like the best directed episode of the series. And like I said, it's not a bad show. It's well written, and almost all the characters are interesting. But I don't know. I was expecting something better. I just feel like in this day and age, there's no excuse to shoot your show like it's an old rerun of Law and Order. There's just no excuse for that anymore here in the year of our Lord 2018. And
we shouldn't be CBSing it anymore, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Especially, if this isn't even a network show, it's Amazon. They should be, going the extra mile, but I guess they didn't. The other thing I watched...
I feel like the same thing about Sneaky Pete, which is a show I like that's on Amazon, but it's shot in the same kind of boring-ish way. Have you seen that show?
I have not. I always see ads for it, but I've never watched it. So yeah, maybe it's just an Amazon thing. Maybe that's how they shoot their shows. I don't know. The other thing I watched is the Nicolas Cage film Mandy, which is just as good as everyone has been saying it is. This movie is a trip. I had already heard a bunch of rave reviews of this film, just talking about how crazy it is and how trippy it is and how strange it is, and no matter how much I heard, it still didn't do it justice to how just friggin' bonkers this movie is. It's from the director of Beyond the Black Rainbow, which is also a very trippy, weird film, but this is 10 times better than that. Nicolas Cage and Andrea Riseborough, they're a couple. They're living out in the woods, and they run afoul of this very weird cult that basically ruins their lives, and Nicolas Cage sets out on revenge. And that plot seems very straightforward. It is, when you boil it down, a standard revenge movie, but it's shot in this like fever dreamish way where almost nothing looks natural, but it doesn't look, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just this very, very strange, haunting, disturbing, weird film, and I loved it. That comes out next month, I believe, and if it's playing near you, you should go see it immediately.
Very cool. Brad, what have you been watching?
So I partook in a new Netflix movie that arrived this weekend. There was a lot of buzz about it online through film Twitter and whatnot. It's called To All the Boys I've Loved Before. It is a romantic comedy that features Lana Condor, who everyone will probably recognize as Jubilee from the X-Men franchise, who didn't really get much of a spotlight when she was cast in those movies, despite everyone being excited they actually finally cast somebody in that role and were seemingly going to make her a significant character. But it stars her in the lead in this high school romantic comedy that is seriously super charming and has just like charisma for days and has a great young cast at the center of it. And it really is just a fun watch. It's another entry in that kind of signals this sort of, comeback that the romantic comedy seems to have, since it's been missing ever since the mid-budget movie in Hollywood started disappearing and people either started making solely blockbuster studio movies or, smaller indie projects. And after seeing this movie, I definitely want Lana Condor to be in so many things. She is just so delightful and wonderful and endlessly charming. and the movie also looks really good too. It's just shot in a way that actually it doesn't feel cheap. You know, there's some cool landscape shots, and it just feels like an old school high school romantic comedy. My only complaint would be that I wish that it was a bit funnier. It's definitely much more romance than comedy. It feels like it could have used some punch-ups from, some comedians or something like that. But it is also based, on, the experiences of a real person. So, at least as far as I know, I believe it's inspired by the author Jenny Han's real life to some extent. So I can understand maybe not wanting to enhance or exaggerate the comedy in that regard. But it's definitely worth watching. I enjoyed it. I actually think that I might have liked it more than Set It Up, which is the other romantic comedy that Film Twitter had been ranting and raving about for a while. But it's definitely pretty good. I think HT, you watched this too, didn't you?
I did. I adored it. Should I go into it, or should I?
Yeah, go into it.
Okay. I also really liked this film, and I think I also liked it better than Set It Up. It's this really charming, really fun, really just entertaining film that I wasn't really bothered by like the lack of comedy per se, because it really got to the heart of what makes me enjoy rom-coms, which is just like the heart-fluttering feelings that I used to enjoy a lot for especially for mid-2000s, early 90s rom-coms. And speaking of mid-2000s, the male lead for this film, Noah Centineo, is basically the spitting image of mid-2000s Mark Ruffalo, both in his looks, hair, and his voice. I thought at first they had cloned Mark Ruffalo because it just was, the resemblance was uncanny, and that was part of the reason why this film works so much, just because this male lead is so good. In addition to Lana Condor, of course, who is really gets her time to shine here as opposed to when she was in the X-Men movie. So I really enjoyed it. It was definitely a return to the teen rom-com that I really like. It's kind of got the vibes of 10 Things I Hate About You or Clueless, and it has a really cute, very rom-com-y trope of a fake relationship, which is one of my favorite tropes for rom-coms. It just made me squeal the entire time. I enjoyed it so much, and I'm definitely already planning to rewatch it. It's just it's a good, and like you said, very stylish film too. I was surprised by how I don't want to say cinematic. Well, yeah, cinematic it was. All the shots were very beautiful and well composed. So it's just so fun, and definitely showing Netflix has a good grasp on the rom-com genre right now.
I will say that I somewhat disagree with the assessment on the male lead, and he grew on me as the movie went on, which is probably the idea. But there's something about the way he talks that really bugs me. Because I love Mark Ruffalo, and the way he delivers dialogue and things like that is very unique, and that's one of the reasons I appreciate him so much. And I don't think that Noah quite has that same charm, because the way he says things is a little bit more Dave Franco-ish to me. Like he's trying to be Dave Franco, and sometimes it comes off a little too douchey to me. So for half the movie, I really didn't like him because he kind of felt like just a dude bro to me. But by the end, I kind of bought into it. I was like, okay, I kind of like this guy.
Yeah, I know he towed the line for me, and I definitely bought him more as kind of the frat bro or the jock with the heart of gold, and I really enjoyed him. He was so cute. All right, he's 22, so it's okay. I can gush over him.
Okay, you guys have totally sold me on this. I am putting this on my Netflix queue to watch whenever I next have some time. Brad, what else have you been watching?
So I rewatched Blockers. I had a quote unquote sort of date night with my girlfriend. Basically, the only things we can really do long distance wise are talk to each other on FaceTime, but we also set times to watch movies at the same time, and then we message each other during and talk about them afterwards. And so I had recently bought Blockers because it was on sale on Amazon, so I put in my digital code, and she had access to my Vudu account, and so we watched that last night, and I think that movie is so great, and I caught it in theaters, and I was so surprised by how funny it was and how progressive and clever it was, because the trailers made it look really bad. But it allows the young teen girls in the movie to like have as much fun as like Jonah Hill and Michael Cera did in Superbad, or in any of those like raunchy teen movies. It's got a little bit of American Pie in it. It's got a little bit of Superbad in it, and it's really fun. And the message in it is great for parents and teenagers. This whole idea of letting women be in charge of their own sexual destiny when they're young, and trusting them to figure their lives out and themselves and what they want. And it's also just hilarious too. There's still like plenty of lines in this movie that cracked me up, even though I had already seen it before. So if you haven't given Blockers a chance yet, definitely go out of your way to watch it.
And HT, you mentioned before one of the articles you read was about the Joy Luck Club. Apparently, this made you go rewatch this movie?
Oh, actually, I've never seen it before.
Oh, wow.
So, it came out in '93, which was a year after I was born. So I never actually got the chance to watch the Joy Luck Club. So I decided that this being sort of Crazy Rich Asians week, and To All the Boys I Loved Before also had an Asian American lead, I decided to just like complete the trilogy and watch the Joy Luck Club. And I really enjoyed it. It is definitely a weepy melodrama and leans into that sort of that genre very much, but it's so beautifully filmed, and it's beautifully acted as well. There's a surprise appearance from Andrew McCarthy, which I did not expect. I was like, oh, hey, you're in this movie, and I forgot for a second like what year it was made. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense in terms of late 80s, early 90s Andrew McCarthy. But it was really good, and I definitely could see the autobiographical elements that Amy Tan inserts into her book. I had finished reading The Bonesetter's Daughter, and I saw like some similar elements in Bonesetter's Daughter as well as in the Joy Luck Club. So I really enjoyed it, and it was a really beautiful and moving tale of women across generations and immigrant mothers and their Asian American daughters kind of struggling with their relationships with each other.
And just because you could, you watched the whole Before trilogy.
Yeah, so I have the Before trilogy on Criterion. And this week I participated in IndieWire's A Critic Survey about Ethan Hawke's best performance. So one of my favorite Ethan Hawke performances is Before Sunset. So I was like, you know what? Why don't I just use this opportunity to watch all three of them as a sort of self-care thing? And I did, and enjoyed it so much. The trilogy holds up so well. It was actually my first time rewatching Before Midnight since I saw it in theaters. So it was definitely, I've been putting it off, but it was, I think, a really worthy experience to experience all three of them at once.
Yeah, I would totally like to rewatch them all probably in one night. Although the experience of seeing them theatrically throughout the years and growing with those characters has been kind of rewarding. I'm not sure if it would be kind of like a whiplash of like seeing it back to back, and I mean, I guess it plays, right? Like
yeah. You notice some of the kind of what they pull over, or what they bring over from each film, which you might not have noticed if you watched like far in between. And I remember like I did wait between Before Sunset and Before Midnight, so I really like that experience as well. And it kind of doesn't have that same magic as waiting for the films, but you do see sort of like a more coherent cycle within the three films, which is really interesting to watch.
Interesting. Maybe if I get some time, I'll order those Criterion Blu-rays and check and rewatch the Before trilogy. Let's move on to what we've been eating. Really quickly, AMC is promoting Better Call Saul by having Los Pollos Hermanos. They opened a pop-up restaurant, I think, last year, and it was like so mobbed, and it was like, the line was, hours deep. So to promote Better Call Saul, they have opened it up exclusively on Postmates. So you can order, if you're in LA or New York City, you can order the famous chicken place from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. I ordered it today before the podcast, and it arrived in that classic the iconic wrappings that we have seen on the TV show, and it was basically just fried chicken and some French fries, but it was enjoyable, and it makes me wonder why don't these TV shows or movies, when there is an iconic eatery like that, why not actually open up physical locations? I feel like there is enough, not just nostalgia, but love for the series to, I think, support maybe not a franchise nationwide, but how they have bubblegum shrimp in touristy areas. But yeah, I would love for them to open an actual real Los Pollos Hermanos or Hermanos. Sorry,
they might as well just partner with El Pollo Loco and just turn one of those locations into a Los Pollos Hermanos location. That seems like the perfect way to do it.
Yeah, but that's no fun. That would just feel like a bunch of cheap vinyl stickers over their logos and stuff. I want an actual restaurant.
No, but that's what I'm saying though. Is you turn an El Pollo Loco into a Los Pollos Hermanos and make it as authentic as possible.
For sure.
What they need to do is have a theme park like Universal open up a location and making a dinner theater where you go in there and you eat your food, but all around you actors are hiding bodies and dealing drugs and telling a story all around you that you have to pay attention to notice.
Oh my God. That'd be so good, but I don't think there'd be any theme park that would go that dark, right?
Not at all.
I was gonna say, wasn't there talk of a Hunger Games theme park?
There was
a little while back in China, I think.
Yeah, it all comes back to China. Okay, let's move on to Brad and what he has been eating or not been eating. Brad, tell us about it.
Yeah, so I've decided to not be a lazy piece of garbage anymore, and I'm seriously trying to lose some weight. I've always been a bigger guy and kind of just want to, as I get older, need to get a little bit healthier while I'm still young and still able to exercise somewhat easily. So I've just been counting calories, doing portion control, monitoring my stuff through my FitnessPal app. And I started this on Monday, and I'm already down 10 pounds, so that's been pretty rewarding so far.
Congrats.
Yeah, thanks. I haven't done much exercising yet, so that's been good. But I'm definitely going to have to get into it soon just to, ease my way into it and burn more calories so that I don't have to necessarily, monitor so closely what I'm eating, even though I still will, partake in counting calories and portion control. So I picked up some newer, quote-unquote, healthier snacks. Obviously, they're not the most healthy snacks like kale chips or something like that, but they're lower calorie and they're nice little in-between things that I can have between meals that aren't going to completely blow up my calorie count or anything. I found out that there are these Philadelphia cream cheese dip packs, which doesn't necessarily sound healthy, but they're only about 200 calories. They come with a little serving of either bagel chips or pretzels, and then it comes with a certain flavor of cream cheese. Sometimes it's strawberry, sometimes it's herb and garlic, sometimes it's chocolate, and so they're really good. The calorie count's pretty low. And they give you so much cream cheese that I actually end up not really eating all of the cream cheese, which is good since that's where pretty much all of the calories are. And then on top of that, there's also these things called Jif Power-Ups that are like these little peanut butter bites that have granola and a little bit of fruit filling in them. They have different flavors like strawberry and grape and apple cinnamon. And those are pretty good. They have a lot of protein in them, and they're good for in between. They help, just filling so that you're not eating a bunch of senseless stuff in between meals. So it's been, otherwise it's been, lean cuisines and quick low calorie breakfasts and that kind of thing. So just trying to keep the calorie count low so that I can keep burning calories.
Well, keep us up to date in future water coolers on how this diet adventure is going. I definitely need to jump back into the diet universe because all the weight I lost months ago, I think I had lost 40 pounds. I have gained it all back. So I got to join you after, just after I finish this fried chicken from Postmates. But yeah, let's talk about what we've been playing. Jacob, you've been playing some Star Wars.
More specifically, I've been buying up some Star Wars. There are a handful of Star Wars board games being produced by Fantasy Flight Games. I've written about most of them on the site in some capacity. But my favorite of them is Star Wars Armada, which is a game where you control miniatures of Star Destroyers and the larger ships in the Star Wars universe. And unlike X-Wing, its more popular cousin, which is a dogfight simulation where it's very fast-paced, simulating the idea of these fighters going after each other and shooting each other down. Armada plays like a naval game where these big, colossal, massive spaceships are maneuvering around each other, trying to get to broadsides, firing cannons. And I find it to be a blast. It reminds me so much of, not necessarily of Star Wars, but it feels like the naval game of my dreams. If it actually plays a lot like how I would want my ideal Star Trek game to play, where spaceships are treated like massive ships or submarines instead of fighter jets. And I recently picked up the last set so far, and Fantasy Flight's been kind of quiet on this game up until recently. So I actually thought it may be dead or dying, but they just announced a Super Star Destroyer model for the game that is going to be $200 and is 2 feet long, so it fits in the scale of the rest of the game. The jury's still out if I'll buy that, but up until that comes out, I am now caught up in Star Wars Armada. Peter, have you played this one? I know you played X-Wing.
I've only gotten a demo of this, but, I invested so much money, hundreds and hundreds of dollars into X-Wing, and I don't even get to get that out that often. So that and Armada is bigger ships, more expensive. I think they just announced like an Imperial Star Destroyer at Gen Con, right? It's like over $100 something.
Yeah, 200.
Yeah, $200. I just can't do it, Jacob. I wish we lived near each other so I could play your copy with you.
Well, the other thing I've been doing is I picked up the RPG Uprising. And Peter, you played the Resistance, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Uprising is a RPG set in the same universe as the Resistance board game, which also includes games like Coup and One Night Revolution. And it's sort of this cyberpunk future where corporations control the government and the people on the ground are fermenting a revolution, trying to overthrow everything. And I picked this up because it is a release from Evil Hat Productions, who is a really quality company. They put out beautiful books, beautiful hardcovers, great art. They publish a lot of my favorite RPGs. This game is written by Brian Engard and Anna Mead. And I picked it up because I like the theme, I like this universe, I like the idea of playing an RPG where I am playing a revolutionary trying to overthrow the government. Like, it's a really fun concept. The idea of playing as a cell of people desperately trying to overcome the odds sounds like a lot of fun. But reading through it, what I really like is that it feels like it's been gamified a bit compared to most RPGs, whereas most RPGs are strict storytelling with a rules system. This one has things like secret cards, where you are handed a card for your character. It's a secret. Only your character knows. Either you're a traitor, you're a hostage, you're a rival, you're a troublemaker. And it forces you to secretly roleplay in a way so that you could be disrupting the story in ways that you have to, because that's what the secret is.
Oh, that's cool.
And and it's... Meanwhile, there are charts that track how well your resistance cell is reaching toward revolution. You have to complete these objectives, and the government, meanwhile, has their own chart where if they reach far enough, they can destroy your cell and pretty much end your entire movement. So I haven't read through the whole thing yet. I don't know when I'll get to the table, but it definitely seems like a really cool game and a really cool way to take the Resistance universe and take what makes it special, the idea of deceit and lying and playing a role.
Wait,
and
I have
taking
one
that
question. Does the game master, the guy that's running the game, know about the secret motives?
That I'm not sure about. I haven't read that far in the book yet. But I would assume so, because that would definitely make it. If the GM knows about that, they can make a better story by forcing them to confront that. But yeah, I haven't gotten that far in the book yet.
Well, very cool. HT, what have you been playing?
So last week I talked about how I've been hanging out with a lot of my cousins because they're in town for the weeks. And one of my cousins is a big gamer, and she brought her game Overcooked to play with the rest of the family. So Overcooked is a cooperative cooking game that you can play with 1 to 4 players. And my family is kind of addicted right now. So it's basically just you get thrown into a kitchen and are forced to make a meal, or forced to serve like customers for an entire night kind of thing. Depending on the levels, the kitchens have different sort of obstacles. Sometimes they're different plateaus, sometimes there's strange layouts, sometimes there's portals, and it's very chaotic and a lot of fun. And especially when there's 4 players, which is the maximum amount, you kind of end up running into each other, and like some people end up doing too many of the chopping or too much of the washing dishes, and it all becomes a game of cooperation and communication more so than just trying to win. And it's a lot of fun and very addicting. And I recommend doing this in a large group of people just because everyone's just shouting at the screen to tell you what to do and you don't know what you're doing. So it's fun. It's on both. We played it on the Switch, but it's on PS4, Xbox, and on the computer too, on Microsoft Windows.
I was going to say, I can't imagine a bunch of people huddled over, the actual portable Switch console. It's like something you actually have to play on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You definitely the bigger the screen, the better.
Yeah.
And I vouch for this game too. This game is so much fun. HD. How much screaming did you do?
Oh, we screamed so much. Our voices were hoarse by the end of the night. And everyone was yelling at each other. I don't know if it's good for bonding exactly. I don't know. We were all closer at the end of the night, I'm sure.
Well, very cool. That brings us to the end of today's water cooler episode of Slash Film Daily. As always, this podcast, Slash Film Daily, is published every weekday on slashfilm.com and all the popular podcast apps, including iTunes, Google Play, Overcast, Spotify. Please feel free to send us your feedback, questions, comments, concerns to Peter at slashfilm.com and leave your name and general geographic location in case we mention the email on the air. And please go rate and review this podcast on iTunes. Tell your friends, spread the word, and we'll see you tomorrow.